Hello everyone, Back Photography here with another video, and what you're looking at here is a photo shoot I did with a complete stranger. And this isn't something that I'd planned, it was because of the model I was meant to be shooting with fell through at the last minute, and I was stuck in the city with all my equipment and nothing to shoot. And I was really bummed to have all of my equipment ready to go and my new lens that I was ready to try out and nothing to shoot. So I was really desperate to shoot that day. I really wanted to get a photo shoot done with this new lens and make a video for you guys. So I decided to do something that was a little bit out of my comfort zone and definitely not something that I would normally do, and that is ask strangers as they came along if I could take their photo. I'd seen a few videos from different photographers on YouTube taking photos of strangers, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to give it a go because I would really like to use this lens. And what ended up happening was Asha here, who I met just today, we did a really awesome photo shoot together and got some really nice photos. So I'm going to show you all of those photos today and exactly how all of that kind of came to be. So I wasn't sure how long I'd have with Asha. I thought it might be 1 or 2 minutes, but luckily we had a really nice location just around the corner from where I asked her. These stairs here with some nice backlit light, with some yellow stairs that fit with the scene as well, and some nice neutral white concrete walls. We got really lucky with Asha's outfit because the white top really went well with the neutral colors around the scene, and also blue looks really good with the sky as well. So all the colors matched really nicely. After a few minutes of shooting, I gave Asha the camera because I thought that was going to be the end of our photo shoot, but we liked the photos so much that we decided to keep shooting at a few more locations after this. So before we move to the second location, which is probably my favorite location from this photo shoot, let's have a look at a few of the photos that we took in this area. Let me know which one of those photos is your favorite, and I'll say in the description as well which one I like the best. If you're enjoying this content so far, I'd really appreciate it if you left me a like, but most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me a lot in the YouTube algorithm, so thank you very much for subscribing. So here we are on the second location, and I really like this location because of the big red parasols, and they make a really reddish and interesting tone to Asha's skin. And when I edit these photos in Photoshop and remove that redness, it makes the background and the surrounding area a really interesting green color, and I'll show you those photos in just a minute. And Asha was totally owning it with all of the poses she was doing in these photos. I wasn't really giving her that much direction, and she knew exactly how to pose and how to look her best in all of these photos. And because I was using a 24mm f1.4, which is a super wide angle lens on a full frame camera, I was trying to get some really dynamic angles and shooting really low to the ground to make Asha's legs look super long. And I think this worked really well in these photos. And it's one of the main strengths of the 24mm focal length. You can get some really interesting warped images, especially when shooting from crazy angles, because it makes the perspective of the photo look a lot different than it would look in real life. So if you're shooting with a wide angle lens, try shooting really low from the ground, try shooting really high up with like a bird's eye view looking angle. All those kind of things are going to add an extra flair and an extra style to your photos. And what I like to do in the same location is take some photos stood up, take some sat down, maybe some lying down, just try to get a whole bunch of different looks in the one location, because you never know what's going to look good and what you might discover by trying something different. So now let's have a look at a few of the photos that we got in this location. I think this has to be my favorite image of the 4 I just showed you. I really like the contrast between the blue of Asha's jeans and the red in the background. I think Asha's pose is really confident and very intentional, so overall I think this is the strongest image of those 4. Here is the third area of the photo shoot, and these were like a interesting kind of inflatable archway sort of art exhibition thing. I'm not really sure what you would call it, but they apparently glow in the dark at nighttime, so I'm going to have to definitely come here again and do another photo shoot at nighttime. The inflatable pillars were providing a really nice bit of shade because we were still quite early on in the afternoon. It was about 2 p.m. or 3 p.m, so there was a really harsh sun above us, but we managed to get some nice shaded areas in these archways, which meant we had nice even light on Asha's skin, and also it meant that we could have a nice colorful sky as well in the background. In these situations, it's always best not to shoot directly into the sun, because if you do that, the background is going to be really washed out, it's going to be really bright and white, and you're going to lose all of those details. So I like to shoot either 45 degrees away from facing the sun or 270 degrees away facing the sun. So either our model has front light and is nicely illuminated in the front, or backlight and getting a nice rim light in the hair of our subject. And in this situation, we use the backlight, and you can see in Asha's hair, we have a really nice golden looking light coming through. Now let's have a look at the photos I got in this location, and I'll show you which one is my favorite of these 4 as well. So this one has to be the strongest photo of those 4. I think that because the background is not distracting, but it is interesting in the background, and the composition of how Asha looks in the photo is the strongest. I think that if you're shooting on a 24mm and you're shooting portraits, it's a really good idea to get nice and low because it elongates your subject and makes them look a lot more elegant in the photo. I like how Asha's jeans match the sky as well, so I think it's important that the sky is in this photo, but again, it's not distracting from the frame, so that is why I think this is the best photo of those 4. And if you're unsure of any of the terminology I just used, I have just released a new portrait photography course which will teach you everything you need to know from absolute beginner all the way to an advanced portrait photographer. It goes through camera settings, what sort of equipment you'll need, advanced editing techniques, composition, lighting, everything you need to know to become a portrait photographer. And right now there is actually a 10% off discount for anyone who purchases this course in the next 28 days. Now let's go into Photoshop and have a look at how I edited one of these photos. And if you'd like to edit along, I'm going to leave in the description a link to all of the raw files of the photos that you've seen in this photo shoot. So all you have to do is go into the description, click the link, follow the steps, and you can get the raw files and edit along with me. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, or more specifically Camera Raw, which is a plugin that comes up when you shoot in RAW format. I'm going to increase the exposure and also the clarity just to make a punchier image, and then add a whole bunch of vibrance back in so that we can get the colors back into her jeans and her hair as well. I'm just going to reduce the highlights slightly as well, just so there's no clipping whites in the scene. And then now I'm going to go into the specific color sliders, add a little bit more yellow and a little bit more blue as well, just to make the image look a little bit more punchy. Because when you shoot in RAW, you don't have as much of a colorful image compared to JPEG. So now I'm going to get the brush tool and then reduce the exposure and the blacks all the way down, and that's so that I can see a selection of the skin that I'm highlighting, because what we're going to do now is highlight all the parts of the skin that we would like to make smooth, and then in one quick pass smooth the skin by reducing the clarity. And you can be a lot more precise if you want to use something like the patch tool later on in Photoshop, but this is a quick way to do a rough skin smoothing and make all the skin look a little bit more smooth. So I'm making sure not to go over any contrasting lines or anything I would like to keep sharp. I'm just going over the skin areas that I would like to smooth out a little bit. So going over the face and the arms and sometimes the chest and stomach as well, really depends on the photo, but making sure not to go over the nose or the eyes or any area that's a feature point of Asha's face. So you can see here when I slide the clarity slider, it brings in detail or removes detail depending on where you put the slider. Okay, so now we're going to add some more detail back in by boosting the clarity and just dropping the exposure a little bit on the eyebrows. And the eyebrows really frame the face, so it's one of the first places that someone looks when they're looking at an image, and the eyes is always going to be the first place, so we need to make those a little bit more bright as well. We don't want to go too far with this, just a little bit of extra brightness to draw focus to Asha's eyes. Now I'm just going to add a little bit more brightness around Asha, and that's really just to draw focus to the image and make the image look a little bit more interesting with a more bright lighting effect. So that's everything we're going to do in Camera Raw. Now let's jump into Photoshop and finish off this image. The next thing I like to do, now that I've done a rough skin smoothing, we can do a more detailed one. And this can take a little bit of time, so I'm just going to spend the next couple of minutes or so talking to you about why I'm really glad that I did this photo shoot. So the model that I was meant to shoot with bailed on the photo shoot at the last second, which sometimes happens. And one thing I could have done is said, well, the photo shoot's over, I might as well go home. But instead, what I decided to do is, go out of my comfort zone and ask Asha here, in a risky move really, whether she would like to shoot. And luckily enough, she said yes. And I think that because she said yes, we got a really awesome photo shoot in here. And we didn't let the day be a fail just by, letting someone else bail on the photo shoot, and which would have meant that we didn't get any photos at all. So I really think it's important that sometimes, if you really want to shoot, you're going to have the opportunity to redeem the photo shoot, and you can ask somebody if they would, like to get their photo taken, and you can really bring this sort of thing into a positive light and still get out there and shoot. So make sure, if something like this happens, take that as an opportunity to go out there and shoot either way. So the next thing we're doing here is just with the liquify tool, making the hair a little bit thicker and fuller and longer, because the thicker someone's hair is, the healthier it looks, and it's just one of the ways you can make a portrait look a little bit better just by adding a little bit more volume to the hair. This is something I like to do with pretty much every portrait I ever do, and I think if you give it a try, it'll make a big difference to your portraits. Just make sure that you're using an appropriate brush size, and make sure that you're only making little changes so the image doesn't look too warped and distorted. So that's a before and after, and you can really see a big difference in the image. So I'm just going to use the patch tool to remove that little cut that Asha has in her lip, and that's pretty much everything we're going to do for this photo. We're going to just do one last thing, which is make a selection of Asha using the selection tool. Then we're going to click select inverse, and now we have a selection of everything that isn't Asha. And what I'm doing here is just adding a little bit of blur around Asha here so that we can draw focus to her and leave the background a little bit more blurry and less distracting. This is just a subtle change as well, so don't go too crazy with this. Just add a few pixels of blur and that'll make a big difference. So that's everything for this photo. I really hope that you like it. I'm really happy with how this photo shoot turned out, especially considering the circumstances of how the photo shoot started. So thank you very much for watching. If you got this far, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.